Okay, everyone. Welcome to our practice tonight to Medicine Buddha. Um, and welcome to those who are new joining us for our practice. Feel free to say hello and greet the room in the chat. And let's see. And you can also actually just like, I would like to know how you're doing, so like if you want to do just like a little like, how are you? I'm well, whatever it may be. That would be lovely. And then, of course, in a few minutes, we can start adding prayer requests to the chat box. Also, for those of you who are studying with me in the Consuming the World course for Love and Reach graduates, if you have questions, please go ahead and put those questions in the Ask a Question. So I did tell you at our meeting last week to do that. If you could, if you showed up. I'm still here. I'm just adjusting my camera. And let's see, what else? Yeah. So like any updates on how you're doing? This is a very busy weekend for a lot of us who are into celebrating and observing. Passover was this weekend. Easter was this weekend. Full moon was this weekend. Of course, Ramadan is still being observed as well. So very busy ceremony. This is the beginning of spring ceremonies, and there are also so many of these ceremonies. I'll just speak about Easter. Since I grew up Christian, and I still love Jesus. And, even with Easter, it's really interesting to always think about how so many of the rituals and ceremonies that we observe during Easter celebrations are actually pagan, and indigenous rituals from like Northern Europe and the UK, and parts of like Eastern Europe as well. Some of these ritual ceremonies around spring are related to deities. I just read about a Sumerian deity, which Sumeria was an advanced culture, that predated the Christian era, but there was in Sumeria there was an observance of it was a spring goddess who was said to descend into the underworld for fall and winter, and then was resurrected in the spring, very much like Persephone, the Roman Greek mythology of Persephone and Demeter, where fall and winter is explained because Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, who's the goddess of the earth, it has to go down to Hades to be with Hades, the god of the underworld. And when Persephone leaves, Demeter goes into mourning, and so the mourning is fall and winter. When Persephone comes back, of course, Demeter feels better, and we enter into spring and summer, and of course, the cycle continues on and on. But in Samaria, there was a very similar observance of a deity, and I think particularly the language was around resurrection. So people like scholars began to kind of make these like, I don't want to say assumptions, but they begin to link this, this ritual of resurrection in Samaria with the observance of resurrection, with Easter, and Christianity. This again, um, I find all of this extremely fascinating, as I find many deities and the practice of deity, um, and so forth. Um, Very interesting. Um, so, in New Saints, in the next book coming out next fall, not this fall, not this year, but next fall, I talk a lot about deities. And as we talk a lot about deities in this space, since we are practicing medicine Buddha, um, I'm just like really trying to unpack uh, how I understand deities, from my own practice. Um, so much of what I'm trying to do is demystify so many of these rituals and ceremonies. They're still quite sacred and profound, absolutely, but I think sometimes religious and spiritual hierarchy and superiority is maintained when the clergy class uh, of a path or a religion like chooses to keep ritual and ceremony and certain philosophies of the path obtuse or difficult to understand or ambiguous, you know. And that just maintains power and authority. This is not to say, right, that um, this kind of hierarchy and status doesn't occur, because there are those, people who are practicing who are advanced, who are deeper in the practice. And of course, there's going to be spiritual authority there. But what I'm actually more talking to is how um, things are kept intentionally obtuse and ambiguous, um, to maintain the superiority of a clergy class. Um, so yeah, I experienced that even just being a lama. Just like even becoming a lama, there's still hierarchy and status, that I'm not really, um, I don't buy into anymore, really. But anyway, all this is to say that, I really think that we have to understand as much as we can how all of this is working, so we can feel much more empowered, have much more agency, and believe in the possibility of attaining awakening or freedom, liberation, or what have you. It can't always just stay ambiguous, and we can't keep relying on people. Like, you can't keep relying on me for practice. um, it's important that we take the practice and the teaching from teachers and guides and mentors, and then really work to cultivate that practice in our personal lives. Um, and that's the arising of agency. Like, when we can understand the practice and engage in the practice, doesn't mean that like we get to a point where we're bypassing the teacher, but the teacher becomes a support that helps you to continue to deepen the practice. But if the teacher disappears, you still have a practice. Um, the practice is still there. Um, so yeah, so I'm just looking through what everyone's posting. Um, it's good to see you, Shelly. I think about Tucson. I think literally like every day. No, I just, my trip to Tucson to see you all was very impactful for me. It really helped to clarify some points around colonization and the skillfulness of local deities to navigate colonization. Um, so yeah, and the land, of course, the land is like quite potent, you know, and the medicine of the land is still, it's still being cared for. As I was, meeting with local priests and priestesses, like people are still doing ritual. Um, I'm just going to read through some of these uh, check-ins. Um, see, peaceful, a little stressed. Yes. Um, exhausted and grateful. Let's see. Tired, grateful, abundant. Some sensitivity from spending time with family. Yep, they'll do it. I had some wonderful time with my family. I was able to visit with my mother and my grandmother and uncle. Um, and, my uncle and I have been really um, connecting um, over our family magic, our ancestral magic, which I've been really excited to learn more about. Um, and in general, I just think that so many of our ancestral lines or physical families carry there's still ancestral magic that still is being passed through down in our family lines. And I've met several people throughout my life who come from very strong family lines of magic and healing, and in various abilities. Um, and so I'm just like really, I feel really like full and moved to kind of like be connecting um, to family, familial magic, ancestral magic, and the rituals. And my uncle kind of holds that for our family. We call it, now every family calls us all these very different names, but we call it anointing. Um, and of course, I've heard different people from different families refer to family magic as being very different. If some of you come from that kind of lineage in their family, I'd love to hear about that in the chat. If you, I worked many years ago, actually before I started practicing, with a family of healers who, I mean, they were responsible for me getting into practice eventually, but how their magic passed through the women of the family. So I knew the mother and the family, I knew the daughters, and I knew some of like the grandchildren in the family, and all the women had abilities, um, and it's been going on, I think for centuries with them. Um, so that's what I was doing this weekend. And of course, I was doing ceremonies this weekend as well. We're gonna get started in just a couple of minutes. So if you're just getting to the room, we're just sharing, how you're doing, and I'm just kind of moving through the comments just to see how everyone's doing. People preparing for surgeries, again, exhausted, deep grieving. It's a lot of grief right now. I am feeling the lacrimose, and defeated today. Beating of this huge. Yeah, transition. There's something about, I was reading Lacrimose, and then I just skidded over and started thinking about the Lacrimosa. That's why I was like, wait, what am I? What's happening? What's this word I'm reading? The Lacrimosa, in the Catholic Requiem cycle. The Lacrimosa is the prayer for the dead, and every it's a tradition for composers uh, to write their version of the Requiem. And in my 20s, I was, and I guess I still am to an extent, but am very obsessed with the Requiem cycle. I'd never heard of Requiem, so I started college and I was singing and studying voice. Um, and we would sing a lot of requiems, Mozart's Requiem, Beethoven's Requiem, um, Fare's Requiem, some of the ones that I remember singing. And Verdi's Requiem is quite um, um, intense. Mozart's Requiem is probably the most famous. I've heard Mozart's Requiem. I've heard in many movies, particularly period movies, um, like medieval period movies, stuff like that. You hear a lot of Mozart's Requiem, but the Lacrimosa in Mozart's Requiem is quite haunting, you know. But it's a prayer for the dead, but it's also grieving. It's also mourning. It's about recognizing transitions. Um, and some of you have said, you've done going to Lonesome Valley with me, and if you're on the Calm app, I have the new program on Calm that I have is on mourning. But like that mourning, that grief is connecting to the experience of loss and change, is connecting to the experience of the sense of self trying to figure out who it is or who we are after something has changed, shifted, you know. Um, who are we, you know, when we've lost, or when we've changed, you know. Um, I, as you all know, like music is really important for me in terms of my emotional labor. So anyway, yeah, Mozart's Lacrimosa, you can find that on YouTube, Spotify, whatever services that you have. How am I doing? Um, I'm doing pretty good. Today I was writing on grief. I guess there was a theme emerging for me today. But I've been writing really heavily on grief for the book. So much of the book is, I think, so much situated in grieving. Um, so I've been really working with that, just grief and, what it means to hold grief. What does it mean for social, collective, interpersonal transformation to work with grief? Um, since last summer, grief has been so much of the work that I've been doing. Um, yeah, of course, still, we have people still working through COVID, um, feeling rested, present, and joy. I was like, what does no echo mean? No, it means no actual echo. Yeah. So yeah, you're participating in the Tricycle Buddhism and Eco Ecology Summit. Yeah, I think Lumbawilla was a part of that as well. I think I noticed that she was taking part in some of that. Um, so much, I was in London. I don't know if you've heard about this. The extinction rebellion um, in the UK, which is an organization network uh, organizing around climate crisis. And I was in London and a part. Well, I wasn't like officially a part. I was like in. I was around a lot of this big day of action last Sunday, so a week ago Sunday, in London, where they shut down, I think, four bridges, and a lot of people risked arrest, went to jail. Um, and I've known people in the organizing for a couple of years now. Um, so much of this activism and organizing reminds me, at least what they're doing, reminds me so much of the early organizing, ACT UP, the the early ACT UP organizing, that kind of like really um, super disruptive kind of action, that corresponds to the level of crisis, that's happening. So, which is what is needed. Um, Sadness and grief. There's some medical procedures coming up as well. Um, okay. Super disruptive and super creative. Yeah. Yeah, and we can go ahead and start putting in prayer requests too if you haven't. And we'll get started in a couple of minutes. Yeah, I'm writing about climate, the climate crisis. Um, but I'm doing it through the lens of channeling the consciousness of the earth. Because why not at this point? So, like, what does it mean to talk to the earth and ask the earth what it wants, what it needs? Um, and the wind, right? And then all the elements, actually. It's not just the physical land, but it's the energy of the physical natural world that we're trying to connect to. Um, but so much of the work that we have to do is actually around trauma. Um, like, we have to come back into relationship with the land. And it's hard to be in a relationship with the land, if we're also really kind of struggling with being in a relationship to trauma, as well. Um, just in my work, right, I believe that the body connects us to the earth, right? And to work through our disembodiment, our disassociation, um, is at the same time working to reconnect to the earth and the energy and the consciousness of the earth. This is why we do so much earth consciousness work here, which I call touching the earth. That's my version of touching the earth, is connecting to the consciousness of the earth and to the land. Of course, you can connect to the consciousness of fire, of wind. Um, whenever I do an in-person kind of one-day retreat or something, again, I want to do some wind consciousness practice, or what other people call wind magic, um, but just like connecting to the wind, connecting to how the elements actually show up for us in our experience. Um, this is quite powerful practice as well. Oh, is anyone sharing family magic? I forgot to check that. I didn't see anyone, but I just see someone now. Yeah. So many people come from families where people just do things, and you just don't have a name for it. You just say, "Oh, our family has a lot of good luck," or things just tend to happen or go well for us. That's a lot of that has something to do with familial ancestral magic traditions as well. Um, yeah. Someone shared with me a couple, actually, it's a couple of months ago now, some some of their family magic, a ritual from their family magic, and I was like blown away. Not because it was like powerful. It was just like really, if I was blown away because it felt so familiar, like this this kind of spell actually that has been passed down to their family. I was like, wow. Like, and I was like, God, it's so simple, but also really powerful as well. I didn't see anyone sharing family magic, but family. Oh yeah, here we go. I did. I went right over all of this. Um, yeah, grandmother teaching you about cooking and food. Yeah, great grandmother was healer, keeper of the ancestor worship practices of Indonesia. Yeah, yeah. Some of us, you know, um, there's a lot of here. I'm seeing a lot of grandmother reference. This is really interesting. Um, they don't have magic, avoidance, healing, skill and forming. Uh-huh. Yeah. Clairvoyance, healing. Yeah. Yeah. Um, some of us are being called to re-establish familiar lines. Now, we talked about this a little bit in past sessions, but because of the time that we're in, there's a rebalancing happening, right? So we're having this so much injustice and abuse and crisis and climate instability because like we're super off balanced, you know. And this new age that we've moved into is about the labor of rebalancing. And when that starts to happen, the universe, because the universe is an expression of light in its essence, is trying to come back more into a balance. Now, being in the relative, we're kind of out of balance because this isn't actually happening, but somehow we believe it's happening. But here, even here, the work of balancing is really quite very critical. Um, so in this time of rebalancing, what's happening is that old things that were related to the balancing is being awakened again. So new energies are being awakened. Some of you, or many of you, I would assume, are experiencing this kind of expansion of consciousness, right? There's more spaciousness, there's more openness. Dreaming is intent; it's getting intensified. As some of you have shared about healing, there are latent abilities awakening for you, that may have been ancestral, familial, you know, abilities, but have been lost. And so, what you're being called to do is reemerge back into relationship with these abilities, wherever they may be. Um, because this is all for the purposes of being used for the rebalancing. This is why a couple of months ago we did the practice on choosing light, because not all the abilities that people are awakening to, not everyone's going to choose to do the work of benefiting, helping people to get free. Some people will use their abilities for their own ends, and we have experiences of that. There are people who use their abilities to create a lot of harm. Um, One of the most powerful abilities, that I see often is the power, the magic, um, of, I call it charisma. Well, you can call it charisma. You can call it magnetizing. So the magic of magnetizing, and how, I watch a lot of these, like, reality documentary investigative shows about people who run these cons and hustle, other people. And so much of what I see is like this unarticulated ability to galvanize people, and to have people really trust you, and taking that trust and using them for your own ends, you know. Um, that's a very potent ability that you can use for your own ends, or you can use to help people get free. Um, uh, Animal magnetism. Mm. But the unseen world is speaking to you. There are guides, your ancestors. There are beings who are speaking, trying to get your attention to help you to really cultivate these abilities. Um, so this is why the work that we do here is really quite, yeah. Mary Baker Eddy, yeah. Power of prayer, faith, that is very real. Um, I knew some Christian scientists in Boston, as Boston is the headquarters for Christian Science, which is not Scientology, but Christian Science. Christian Science, Mary Baker Eddy, um, who taught the power of prayer and faith. That's how we're going to do it. It's how we're going to get well. We're going to pray. So I knew practitioners who were. I knew one healer, particularly, um, who was quite gifted, um, in her prayer, as a healer. She was like a healer for the church. She was like this kind of recognized healer for the church, and she had given up her career, and had started doing this full time. And all she did was, like, people would call her and to give her prayer requests, and she would just pray. I remember sitting with her, and she just talked about, like, her experience, and then she would just pray and pray until, like, she connected to this luminosity, this light. Like, she would just pray and pray till she felt this light, till she saw this light or felt it. Um, and that's how she knew that there was something working. And of course, people would be benefited by her gift. She was a very lovely person, very like deeply heart centered. Um, um, so go ahead and just add your last prayer request, and so we're gonna get started now. Our practice. So we're gonna do a little bit of breath work. Yeah. Also, yeah, we're gonna do a little bit. I'm sorry, I got really distracted. I got you know something happened. Um, yeah, a little bit of a message download, but yeah, a little bit. We're gonna do a little bit of breath. First, we're gonna do our chanting. We got my drum back. Um, maybe do some work with the earth. But I want us to kind of experiment. It's not that like quite frankly, all I do is experiment, but particularly tonight, this particular experiment will be to allow the energy that we're cultivating, which is like pranic energy. Um, I'm not saying that Shakti isn't awakening, but I'm thinking prana um, as I move through the practice. So I just assume that that's prana that you all are experiencing, life force energy, chi, lung. Um, some of you may be experiencing kundalini as well. Kundalini arising from the base of the spine, which may also be the case as well. But regardless, in our experiment tonight, I want you to allow the energy to go where it needs to go. So I want you to tell the energy, just go where you need to go and see where it goes. Does it stay in the body? Is it working with your physical body? Is it working within the mental body? Is it working with ancestors? Is it going out into the world, into injustice, and war? You know, just to like rest and let this energy just flow. So you follow the energy instead of us directing the energy. We're gonna just follow the energy to where it's gonna go. But we're gonna awaken it and cultivate it and draw it in from various sources. We're also gonna do 7 homecomings practice as well. So I'm gonna get it wrapped up tonight. Let's see where we go with this. Um, but as we begin, as always, allow yourself to come into a position. It's appropriate for practice. And I want you to, or I invite you to just name, for yourself, um, what you're concerned about, okay, or what you're struggling with. And you may have named that in some of the prayer requests, but many of us don't do the prayer requests. So, but just start naming that for you. What is drawing my attention? What is creating anxiety? What am I sad about? What am I nervous about? What am I pushing away? So we're going to start there and just name it. We're just noticing, just naming, just so you know. what's happening, what's going on. And sometimes I do this at the beginning of my practice because it just helps me just to get it out in the open and say, yeah, this is what I'm worried about. This is what I'm unhappy about. This is what I'm struggling with. Just a couple more moments, just naming, acknowledging. And so when you're ready, after you've named some of these things, I just want you to turn your mind away from what you've named and bring your attention down to the seat. Just bring your attention down to the seat, noticing the weight of the body, your body, noticing how the seat is rising to meet your body. If you're lying down, whatever you're lying down on, noticing how the floor, the surface under you is rising to meet you. This is important. I know this doesn't sound like a big deal, but I want you to really get into this thinking of how the seat is rising to meet you, to take care of you in that rising. And I wonder if you can trust yourself to be held. So I want you to trust yourself to be held, and I want you to trust the seat, the surface under you to hold you. So a couple more moments here, right? And you're using the sensation of your body meeting the seat also as an anchor. And I always do this, or recently over the past year or two, I really start practice with this because we have to touch the earth in this way to begin practice. I want to remember my body. I want to remember that I'm held. I just want to come home to this experience before I move out, into these other experiences. I always want to know that the seat is here. I want to know that my body is here. And I want to know that the earth is rising to meet me. Right? And so as you're anchoring here, letting the rest of the stimuli and phenomena in the space around you just be there, the noise, sounds, temperature, light, texture, and quality, other energies that maybe you're picking up on. And so let's shift our attention a little lower. Let's begin touching into the energetic expression of the earth. And so you don't have to make this any more complicated than it is. I know this is a very abstract practice, but when I say allowing your attention to touch the earth, I want you to first say to yourself, my attention is touching into the energetic body of the earth. So we're not touching the physical experience of the earth, but the conscious energy of our minds is linking with the conscious energy of the earth. And all you have to say is that, yeah, my attention is touching into the earth. My consciousness, the consciousness of the earth, are touching. And in that acknowledgement is the reality of the psychic link, the consciousness of the earth. And what do you feel in this link? I'm not saying you have to feel anything, but is there something that's arising? Is there something that's floating through your awareness, connected to the consciousness of the earth? And whatever you feel, can you just let it pass through you? And so, there's a little bit of practice suggestion here. Um, so, when we are essentially like channeling like this, when we channel, it's about like really coming into, I would say, a calm abiding practice, which is just like learning to watch the mind and not react to the mind. And that's for me like the root of channeling. And channeling is just about connecting to conscious energy, you know. So when I'm doing this work, yeah, I'm doing my calm abiding practice, just letting things pass through my mind, pass through my body. And I'm also imagining that my body is like this inflated, translucent balloon. I'm like this balloon. I'm full of hot air, you know. It's like- No one's ever told me that, by the way. So I'm like this translucent balloon, just air, space. So as things are moving through me, nothing's like sticking to something inside of me. It's just space. And this comes directly out of Tantra as well. So I didn't make this one up. Um, this is part of Tantra deity practice where when we take on the form of the deity, we start with just kind of imagining the airiness, spaciousness of the body. So this isn't the best practice for some of us. So don't do it if this feels weird or ungrounding. But if you want to extend, if you feel supported enough, you can extend into just like imagining the luminosity and spaciousness of the body through this visualization of the balloon body. So as things pass through, I'm not attaching to it. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just like, it's just like clouds passing through the sky. So energy is just passing through. It comes in, it goes out. And this is a really important way for us to move through the world because most of us are just absorbing everything and holding it, and the physical body and our minds, but it's all being stored as energy, you know. But to have this kind of practice where you feel the spaciousness, that you're just moving through the world as energy is passing in and it's going out. I'm not holding on to anything, but I'm noticing. You don't have to grab on and fixate to notice what's moving through. So now I want you to consciously turn your attention to noticing the care from the earth to land. How is the earth and the consciousness of the earth actually radiating the energy of care? And can this radiation of care begin to actually fill up the body? And I want you to actually hold this energy of care in the body instead of letting it pass out. What does it mean to be filled? Again, like a balloon in air, to be filled with this energy of care. And again, I want you to cut through some of these classical blocks around receiving care, particularly saying to ourselves that the earth is too tired, is too traumatized to care for us. The earth is always caring for us, right? And because we don't connect to the care, we end up manipulating and using the earth in ways that harm it. So what we're trying to do is connect to the care, to know that the earth is just this conscious, intelligent energy that's trying to take care of us. And then that begins to shift our relationship to the earth. We don't see it as this object that we're trying to use to accumulate, to acquire. We see it as a partner, as a lover. Right? We see it as an extension, you know, of our own experiences. Allowing the body to be filled with care. And again, you can visualize this any way that you need to. Maybe it's light that the earth is radiating up, it's warmth, what have you. This is part of the experiments. is to see how you naturally experience or visualize these rituals or practices. There's just a few more moments here before we move on to awakening some more energy. All right. So when you're ready, I invite you to shift your energy to begin to call into your space, your benefactors. You can do that in any form that you like. You can use, of course, the Seven Homecomings practice. If you're new to benefactor practices, if this is your first time doing something like this, I just invite you to imagine, you know, all the beings who love you, who care for you, who want you to be safe and happy and free. And these can be people, spirits, um, um, deities, of course, the earth can be one of your benefactors, angels, ancestors. Your home, like your physical home, is also quite conscious, and so um, if you care for your home, like if you really have been caring for your home, then your home is also caring for you. So you can tap into that energy of care. So allowing these benefactors to really show up around you and beginning to imagine they're radiating the energy of care around you. That care can again be experienced in whatever way feels appropriate for you. But this energy just begins to fill up your space, begins to really touch you. So it's like you're being wrapped up in a blanket, a warm blanket on a cold night, not a blanket on a summer night. And that energy begins to also um, be absorbed into the body, to start mingling with the energy of care from the earth. And so you're deeply saturated with energy. So as we're moving through this, I want to introduce our first mantra. So Namasange Kino Soha. And it's going to really invite the consciousness of Medicine Buddha The consciousness of medicine Buddha is not only this awakened consciousness that we're um, inviting into the space, but also, as we talked about before, we're also inviting the presence and energy of all benevolent, healing, loving energies that are connected to the awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha. So, Medicine Buddha, as an awakened consciousness, as an intelligent consciousness that knows its consciousness, right? That's what we call light consciousness. Um, that consciousness also absorbs and galvanizes other energies um, that are not awakened, you know. Um, so it's not just medicine Buddha we're working with, well, when you're working with me, when we're doing practice together, you're also working with my indigenous healers, the medicine people and shamans that are um, part of my collective cohort. So when we're doing healing work, they're part of working with me and also working with you as well. Okay, so let's begin with chanting Om Nanasangye Kino Soha again. This means Medicine Buddha, please think of me, which is the strict interpretation. But I want you to interpret the word Kino as anything that you need from the consciousness of Medicine Buddha. So it can be Medicine Buddha, please heal me. Medicine Buddha, please see me. Medicine Buddha, please be present. So again, letting this naturally become something that articulates your need in a moment. So stop thinking about it and just chant it and see what you need to call into the space and what you need from Medicine Buddha. Okay, so let's begin. We're just going to chant this a few times. Om Minla Sange Kino So Om Minla Sange Kino So Om Minla Sange Kino So So we've invited more energy into our practice now. So the energy from our benefactors, the energy from the earth, and now this awakened energies and the awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha have joined us. So there's a lot of energy that we're beginning to hold. So just shifting some attention to the breath. If you're able to work with the breath tonight, is you're going to do just more of a gentle breath practice. If you're not able to be with the breath, it's okay because it's not imperative. Just this kind of added thing, if you want to just add some awareness of the breath. So beginning to notice the in breath and the out breath. And shifting that attention down to the heart center. So right in the middle, upper chest. So we're beginning to imagine breathing in and out of the heart center now. Just a couple of breaths. Now adding this visualization of, or a thought rather, in this case, a thought that you're breathing the energy in the space around you, this energy of care, this awakened energy of medicine, Buddha, and so forth. You're breathing that into the heart center. Hold down the heart center for just a couple moments, so holding the breath, and then releasing that. And you're breathing out the same energy, right? So essentially, we're breathing in this awakened energy into the heart center, into the heart chakra. We hold the breath just to really concentrate this energy right in the heart center, and that begins to awaken, and get the heart chakra, balanced, and swirling and active. And then we just release the breath. So it's like we're pump starting the heart chakra, which for many of us, our heart chakras are probably quite shut down, given many of the things that we're working with and trying to move through right now in the world, collectively and individually. So we're awakening and getting energy moving in the heart chakra. And it's going to connect us even deeper to our empathy, our compassion, our love. We're going to do this for just a few moments, and then we'll move into the first part of our mantra. And of course, if you start feeling lightheaded, come back to a natural breath. Come back to the grounding of the seat. And take a break whenever you need to. But just a couple more moments, maybe two more breaths. Okay, coming back to a natural breath. So at this point, as we move into the main mantra for Medicine Buddha, this is when I want you to start allowing this energy to flow somewhere. Where does this energy need to go? Where does it need to concentrate? Where does it need to be? Where does it need to heal? Or what does it need to heal? So I don't want you to think about it, but just offering this intention, offering this permission to all the energy that we've awakened, that I want you to go wherever you're most needed right now, and just see where it goes. Okay. So we'll begin. You see the mantra there, Te Ata Un Bacon say. Baconze, Maha Baconze. That's assuming Gate Soha. So we'll do just a couple minutes of the first part of my mantra, then I'll come back and offer the prayers. And then we'll allow some of this energy to flow into the prayers that have been offered. We'll begin. Begenze ma begenze raza sumunga tesua te azam 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 begenze ma begenze raza sumangate soa. Te hata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumangate soa. Te hata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumangate soa. Te hata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumangate soa. Te hata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumangate soa. Te hata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumangate soa. Te hata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumangate soa. Te hata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumangate soa. Te hata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumangate soa. Te hata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumangate soa. Te hata begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumangate soa. Now I'll begin to offer our prayer requests. And again, even just making an emphasis to call into the space if they're not already here, just all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, all angels, all benevolent spirits, guides, ancestors, all the consciousnesses, the enlightening consciousness of all the elements. We call in all beings. We offer these prayer requests, these prayers, these longings, these desires to you, and we ask you to work on our behalf to bring about what we most need to see for ourselves, for the world, and for those that we love. So we begin to offer prayers for myself, for Lydia, that I may learn to forgive myself, let go of doubt about my teenage son's future, and learn to create a new life for myself and for my son, that his soul may guide him to limit the harm he creates as he processes his trauma over time. And prayer request for Lorena's mom, for her mental and physical health, my brother to find his way to a good job and health and ease and support for getting through the next few weeks with lots of deadlines, and asking for support and inspiration and sorting out whether to leave my job and when. Offering prayers for my Aunt Sheila, Mary, and Romulo, for all who are suffering. Prayers for Bumima and all they witness and transform for us. Prayers for my godparents, my ancestors and lineage. Prayers for me that I overcome my personal challenges, to be more of a light of healing and peace in this world. I'm offering prayer requests for Abby Markham, a sweet little family cat, on her last days. Offering prayer requests for a former mentor, Brandy, who is unwell and hurting, and is reckoning with hurting others along the way. We're offering prayers for my father, TJM, who is dealing with the suffering of aging, feeling helpless and powerless as he has early dementia, an autoimmune disease, and a recent blood clot, awaiting an upcoming surgery that's been postponed because of the clot. So I'd like to pray for my grandma in El Salvador. She turns 83 today. She broke her arm last week, struggling with many health issues. I pray that I can meet her one day. And prayers for Cameron in the hospital. Prayers for Fern and a peaceful transition and all those mourning her life. And prayers for peace in the world. Prayers for all of us, that when we face inevitable pain and challenge, that we remember the earth, each other, and the Dharma, so that we might experience clarity and ease. Offering prayers for my mom, prayers for her caregivers who are under-resourced, and for myself. May we all be at peace and at ease. Offering prayers for myself as I prepare to travel and go on retreat, for a friend, Pixie, who was in the hospital, for anyone grieving and healing from trauma. Prayers for M, Prince, and Sasha Bear. Offering prayers for Kitty. Offering prayers for Thomas's father, Cindy's brother Dave, and myself. Offering prayers for my brother who is living on the streets. May he be safe. May he be well. May he find what he needs. Offering prayers for Alex and Laura. Offering prayers for all holding deep tenderheartedness, exhaustion, grief. Prayers of inspiration and gratitude as well. And so prayers for ease and medical procedure tomorrow morning. For Sarah and her fear around potential surgery near her eye. And for all people experiencing medical challenges. And offering more prayers for loss as well. Yeah, I'm praying for Elizabeth's surgery next week and for a speedy recovery. And I want to offer prayers for my friend's father, Reverend um, Rodriguez, who is in his late 80s and recovering from a series um, of infections right now in the hospital. Let's pray for a speedy recovery. I pray for my friend Patrick as he continues with his health issues. Um, I pray, offering prayers for my mother as well, that there's reconciliation between her and one of her close friends. Offering prayers, offering all the prayers that have gone unspoken, unarticulated prayers that we don't even know that we should be praying. I offer all of those prayers to all of our benefactors. And I pray for our ancestors. And I pray for our ancestral magic to reemerge for us in our practices. And I pray for all the keepers of lineages, of magic, and practices and ceremonies And I pray that these lineages awaken and assert themselves to bring about the benefits and the well being of all beings. I pray always for the disruption and the ending of all systems of violence and abuse and power. I pray for equanimity. I pray that all beings get access to all the resources that they need to be well. I pray for redistribution of any resources that are not being used. And may those resources be offered to those who need them for their well being, happiness, and safety. And I pray for the earth, all the elements. And I pray that we all may experience the deepest liberation from suffering as quickly as possible, and that we all may one day attain enlightenment sooner than later. I offer these prayers to all of our benefactors, to all the guests that we've invited. And I pray that you move quickly and swiftly to bring about the fruition of what we most desire, all in line of benefiting beings and alleviating the suffering in the world. So we're turning our attention back to the mantra, just imagining that the energy that we've awakened and cultivated begins to be shared and radiated into the experiences um, of all the prayers that we just offered. Okay. 我这呀长别肯在别肯在马别肯在，rasa sumunga te soa。这呀长别肯在别肯在马别肯在，rasa sumunga te soa。这呀长别肯在别肯在马别肯。Rasa sumunga te soa, te atam beganze ma beganze. Rasa sumunga te soa, te atam beganze ma beganze. Rasa sumunga te soa, te atam beganze ma beganze. Rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Te atam beganze ma beganze, rasa sumunga te soa. Jehata Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasuma Gatisova. 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 Jehata Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumongate Sua. Jehata Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumongate Sua. Jehata Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumongate Sua. Jehata Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumongate Sua. And if you're working with the breath, I invite you just to take a huge, deep inhale. As you exhale, follow the exhale and allow it to take you down back to the seat, to the rising of the seat to meet your body. We just kind of move through offering thanks and appreciation to all the elements of our practice, to the earth, to all of our benefactors who've gathered. We allow our benefactors and all the beings we called into the space to return back from where they came from, but still connecting, holding the energy of care in the body. And I pray that whatever care and energy that we've been able to hold in our bodies and our minds, that it continues to stay and take care of us for as long as possible. I pray for the light and the energy of the protectors and of Tara, the mother, to be with you as we prepare to transition out of our practice. With the light of the mother, the blessings of Medicine Buddha wrap you and take care of you as you move back into the world of caring for yourself and caring for your loved ones, caring for the community, and maintaining any form of well-being right now. So when you're ready, just gently begin to awaken the body. Do some simple, slow movements. And then we'll transition into Shantideva's prayer. And then I will just quickly answer the questions. I'm only going to answer these two questions since we're past time. I never know what time we're supposed to end these days. So we're going to recite this 3 times together. Okay, just give me just one moment. I'm feeling called to keep a lot of incense offering going tonight. Must be for some of the beings in the space tonight. Okay, so we'll begin. May I be a protector to all those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine. And may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, in a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I, uh, sorry, may I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space, and the great elements such as Earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, and a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for all desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away, and may I be the doctor and the medicine for all, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space, and the great elements such as Earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach until the ends of space. All right. And thank you all so much for your practice. So let me just look at these questions really quickly. Okay, so for Jane, I'm in the consuming workforce concerning meditation. I'd like to know how you differentiate between shamatha and zazen. Um, I think it's very similar. I have personally never actually practiced zazen before, but from what I understand from a lack of practice, is that it's very similar. Um, I think it's reflections of each other. But again, I'm not zazen. I've never said zazen before, so that's the best that I can offer there. Um, how do we know we're practicing enough? Recently, given a glimpse of how far up of the mountain I have to go, finding it hard to know the right pace, knowing I want to get there, but that there's always so much I can do in this lifetime. I would, um, so in the Lojong teachings, that consuming the world is, of course, in the Lojong teachings that I'm doing right now. But one of the teachings, one of the slogans is to give up all hope of fruition. And this is really important here. Like we have to kind of, you talk about there's so much work to do, just forget about it. Just like you're gonna psych yourself out. That's how we'll never get enlightened if we're always anxious about the amount of work that needs to be done. Um, it's like some of you who've done PhD programs, or you work in the academy, like you. It's like trying to get through a PhD program sometimes. It's very similar. It's like sometimes you just have to just do the work. So how do you know you're practicing enough? Um, this is, do you feel fulfilled? Like letting go of the anxiety around trying to get anywhere and just say, I'm just going to practice. You know, um, you'll never get anywhere if your practice is motivated um, by anxiety or just trying to do it to get it, just to get through or to get enlightened. Now that sounds like a huge old contradiction, to so much of what we learn um, in Buddha Dharma. But again, your practice has to be driven by compassion, not by a need to get out of here or a need to awaken because it's so intense. If you just awaken this intention of compassion through bodhicitta, I mean, the practice will begin to guide. The compassion and bodhicitta to will begin to guide the quality and the length and the depth of your practice moving forward. Um, and it's right. It's only so much that we can do in this lifetime, and and also to also say that like we're also we can do a lot more than what we're doing too. It's like you know we just it's about recognizing what our purpose in this life is, right? And then building practice around that purpose. Uh, Many of us are not called to spend our whole life in retreats, like in solitary or group retreat or whatever. I know people who are, like, or at least I've heard of people um, who are in lifelong retreat, solitary lifelong retreat. I know organizations that support lifelong retreatants, but that's not what many of us are called to do. We're called to practice in the world right now. Um, and how do we build our practice around being in the world, being in relationships, being in careers and, with, having kids and partners and owning houses or whatever it is that we're doing in the world. So our practice has to come from there. We don't have to lead everything, you know, to go into any kind of solitary or retreat situation. Um, but it doesn't hurt either, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's an intuition that we develop um, on the path that begins to guide the path, and the intuition is grounded in compassion um, for ourselves and for the world. That compassion with wisdom are kind of the guardrails for our practice. Um, in a tantric sense, in the Buddhist tantric sense, we're just trying to get a glimpse of the mind. That we're just trying to like understand the mind and get an experience of what the mind actually is. That's what we're going for. Like we don't have to sustain that view. What's more important is that we know what the mind is. So at the moment of our death, we know how to rest within the nature of the mind. That's what we're practicing for. You know, that's the experience in the tantric, in a really strictly tantric sense. That's what we're trying to get is um, the taste. I would say the taste of the essence itself. So you always once you experience the nature of the mind, you will always know what the mind. Well, at least in this life, you will always know what the mind is, and that means you'll know what the mind isn't. And this is what this is valuable. We begin to understand what the mind isn't and what the mind is. And so we start orienting towards what the mind is instead of falling back into what the mind isn't. Right. So instead of taking refuge in appearances, we take refuge in the emptiness of things. Mm. But this is the age old question again: how much do I practice? Who knows? Like you have to kind of figure that out on your own. Actually, there are people who only need to practice a couple minutes a day. You know, um, and everyone's practice is different. There's some people I know. Some people who practice. They're in the world. They're working. They have families. They practice multiple hours a day, and that feels like what they need to do. Some of us don't have multiple hours in a day of practice. Okay, I think that ends it for me. Um, So anyway, that is it. So I pray that all those who are having procedures and gathering resources to be well, that you get all your resources gathered and that you have successful surgeries and procedures, that all those who are passing into the bardo have the support that they need. And that that our hearts stay cared for as we continue to move deeper into the spirit. And I call forth our guides, our ancestors, our ancestral magic to be resources for us. Until we meet again, everyone. Until we meet again, may you be blessed. All right.